Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Wild Earth. This is Safari Live. You're on a live sunset safari. My name is James Hendry. On the camera we have Viam. Thank you, Viam. And on the other vehicle is Jamie, and she's being filmed by the inimitable Gendre, he of the enormous calves. In the final control we have Tara Dales twiddling the knobs and tweeting the tweets. We have Jerry. Eugene is actually lost on the reserve somewhere. We're out here trying to find him. That's not a joke. Also not a joke, and something unfortunately that I have to address this afternoon. For some time we've had the children of the cancer ward in the Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio watching us. As of yesterday, they are not allowed to watch us anymore, and this unfortunately is because a number of viewers have been trying to get hold of the hospital and contacting them. I'm sure it's with the best will in the world. Unfortunately, there are enormous privacy issues around it. Their parents are very concerned, the hospital staff is very concerned, and the children themselves are feeling kind of closed in and afraid by the fact that a number of our viewers have been trying to get hold of the kids at the Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio. One of their staff members has unfortunately been suspended, and they are now not allowed to watch this anymore. We're in contact with them, of course, but can I please make an appeal to you that should you feel the need, and like I say, I'm sure it's with the best will in the world, should you feel the need to contact those kids, please don't. They are obviously having a dreadful time as it is. They're in a cancer ward because they have cancer. They've lost one of their number quite recently who used to watch and ask questions. And we stopped mentioning where they were from until the naming of the hippo the other day, and since that people have been trying to contact them again at the Dayton Children's Hospital. Please don't. I ask you from the bottom of my heart, I know it's with the best will in the world, but I ask you to not try and contact the children, their parents, or the hospital. We're hoping to get them back online so that they can watch us. It's some of the only entertainment and joy that they have in what are extremely trying and difficult circumstances. So if I could ask you to respect the privacy of the kids and their parents and the tremendous work that hospital does, we would be tremendously grateful. Thank you very much for that. We're going to hand straight over to Jamie, who's with some buffalo bulls, and I will see you a little bit later, hopefully with some good news on where Eugene has got himself to.
Oh, good afternoon everyone, and welcome onto the back of Wendy, and on a blistering hot day on Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. It is 32 degrees centigrade, which is 90 Fahrenheit, and Gendre and myself have rushed across to the dam because we heard reports from Kathleen and Tom and Paul and many other viewers saying that there was a breeding herd of ellies around here at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, and they've apparently decided that it's time to move into the shade somewhere else. But we have found a couple of these old gentleman Duggar boys who are found one of the deepest parts of the shade around this clearing, and currently enjoying their afternoon spent lazily ruminating and probably moving backwards and forwards towards the pan. Looking very, very peaceful. And the low whistle as well of a grey-headed bushshrike that you might be able to hear in the distance. They definitely look like they know exactly what to do on a Saturday afternoon. It's been a day that I've spent in and out of the swimming pool from about 9 o'clock this morning. It's definitely one of those enjoyable summer's days. They definitely don't look like they're planning on moving anytime soon, but they do carry the accompaniment of a number of flies that are buzzing around. I don't know, I've had 2 in my eye already. I don't know about you, Gendre, but they're certainly plaguing us as well as the buffalo, and it's something that's only going to get worse as the summer draws on and the wet season draws on. Oh, he's definitely a well-aged gentleman. You can see all of the dents in his horns, the base of his horns, and stains of mud across his face where he's obviously spent the day enjoying a mud wallow. just to have one more look as we go through at the gentleman on the left. Something we see fairly commonly, but he has broken off his horn at some point. This is not a fresh injury. This is very old, but it's something that many of you will have seen. Oh, oxpecker in the ear, oxpecker in the eye, oxpecker in the other eye. There you go, you can see the ridges quite clearly. You can see it's an old break, it's healed up nicely. There's no signs of blood or anything. And important to remember if you're new to watching these live safaris, these horns are solid bone. I'm not sure what would have broken that off. Probably a fight with another male. It does commonly happen, especially if there's a slight fault line or crack in the bone. They can break them off, but it is quite a painful injury for them. Nothing life-threatening, but definitely uncomfortable. And I'm gonna... oh, the oxpecker's flown off him. I'll get back to the oxpeckers in a moment. Look at the wrinkles on his neck. There we go. Have a look at the oxpecker as they're sort of travelling through. Not popular. Sitting on the crust of mud there, and every now and again you see it open its mouth. It's panting. It's cooling down that way. It's a hot bird. So that's what it's doing. That beautiful, strikingly red beak as he hops around, it picks off all the parasites and ticks. But even the birds feel heat, especially on days like today, and especially sitting, sharing all that body heat with the buffalo. Time for a quick preen. And that now, I was asked yesterday about unusual birds that I'd seen in the Kruger, and I forgot one quite big one. Not a big one, but there are different types of oxpeckers. So Kathy in Tennessee, you were asking about that. We get two kinds. The one that you're currently looking at, that's hopping around the buffalo, is known as a red-billed oxpecker. There is also a yellow-billed oxpecker, which is slightly bigger, and funnily enough has a at least half yellow beak. It's half yellow and half red, and it's a bird that in the past was fairly critically endangered, or at least threatened, and has been brought back by the concerted efforts of conservationists in this area. But you don't often see them. I know some of the viewers will have, and you must count yourself to be very, very lucky if you've seen a yellow-billed oxpeckers on one of these live safaris. I still always keep my eyes out whenever I see a nice big buffalo herd to see if I can spot them. They're a little bit bigger, but not as often. You don't see them as often. The one I saw was very fleeting in passing, sitting on the back of a buffalo, of an impala, sorry. There you go, look at him pant. The bird sitting on the buffalo's shoulder on the right. It's got its mouth wide open. It is so warm. And if we look at the one on the left, just for the moment, oh, as he heard me, flew away because I was talking about him. Well, have a look at all of the oxpeckers that you see around and about. They have very stiffened tails, and it's something that we see in things like woodpeckers as well. Birds that are adapted to hopping around on almost vertical surfaces and then supporting themselves on it. And their tail feathers are just that much thicker and more supported to provide extra balance, so that they don't have to entirely rely on their feet the whole time. And of course, not only very useful for the buffalo, but useful for people walking in the bush as well, because it's something that you will always see sitting on the back of these Duggar boys. Alrighty, well, I think that we should leave these buffalo boys in peace in their shade and go and see what else we can find. I did hear reports that there were sounds of mating leopards this morning, and that somebody saw them cross into Djuma, and I think it might be time to go and have a look for them, or at least slowly make our way into that area, if I can remember how to start the car. Come on, Wendy. Hey, we got it. Cheers, buffalo. Enjoy your afternoon.
Hello everybody, we are going down towards the Mlolwati drainage line. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated by the crash cut to us. We are hoping desperately now, we haven't found Eugene, we've given up on him. We're going to try and find the mating leopards from this morning. Now if you were not with us this morning, what we were trying to do was find mating leopards that Brent could hear on foot, and we had tracks of, and someone had seen last night. We thought we'd narrowed them down to a small block around this area, but then we came up with nothing. Then stories emerged of tracks heading in a slightly different direction. Anyway, the point is that we're in the area, we're trying to find mating leopards. We could use all of your good thoughts and wishes to try and find them in this area. Now, it's been a hot day. It's not the hottest we've had, but certainly pretty close to it. Probably pushing 37 degrees Celsius, which is about 5 million Fahrenheit. And so that means that the leopards would not have moved a great deal, I don't think, during the day. They would have lain down in the shade. There would probably have been some seduction from old Karula, probably the odd mating event, but in the heat of the day I don't think they would have mated necessarily as often as they would otherwise when it's a bit cooler. So we're going to drive around here slowly, try and pick up some tracks, also stopping to listen every so often, because as we all know, or perhaps we don't, if you've ever seen leopards mate before, they make a tremendous noise. It's not a quiet affair, and so the deep throaty growl that you can hear from both male and female should be audible from pretty close by. That's quite a distance actually. Now we think, this is where Brent thought that he'd heard them, around here this morning. He was a little way away from here on foot though, so you know, to be able to pinpoint a sound when you're on foot, especially along a drainage line, is very difficult. I think Jamie will be coming down from the other side there, assuming her recalcitrant vehicle will allow that. Otherwise we may just be staring at you again the whole afternoon. Well, hopefully not just at me. We'll try and find some animals for you to stare at as well. So we'll pop along this road, we'll do a kind of loop around this general vicinity, see if we don't get lucky. One always looks in these big trees like that scotia over there, that weeping boerbean, hoping to see them draped from the boughs. There are no leopards draped in that tree just yet, maybe later on. Cicadas are out, which is wonderful. It feels like summer. Of course, the sweat dripping down my back also makes it feel like summer. Viam, that's a remarkably good sun hat you've got on there. Viam looks like he's about to hand his hat to the umpire and bowl an over or two. He's got a wide-brimmed hat upon his head, khaki-coloured, of course, for disguise. The only other thing to do around this area is try and head towards some water. Now, the mating, of course, that leopards do is very thirsty business. And while leopards don't have to drink, they will drink if they can. Now, the only drinkable water from... well, there are a couple of puddles around, I suppose. There's a puddle at Treehouse Dam. There's also a puddle down at Twin Dams. Maybe they'll head towards there to try and drink a bit of water. I'm not sure. It's a frustrating process tracking leopards because they're very light. They're not heavy creatures at all, so they don't leave very obvious marks on the road. The mating variety should be a little bit easier to find than the single variety. going to stop here in the shade, and I'm going to give you the chance to listen to those leopards and also to hear the cicadas that are calling all the way around us. And of course many of you from North America will know the stories of the cicada that is able to spend 17 years underground sucking on the sap of a root of a tree and then emerging in full splendor to sing his fairly strident buzzing song. And how the females discern one male from the other is a mystery beyond the human ear, because to me it all sounds rather the same. It's only the males that make that noise, by the way, not the females. They don't have the apparatus for it. They don't have the equipment. No sound of mating leopards yet. See a leopard orchid over there. I saw a leopard tortoise earlier on. There's the leopard orchid, nestled in the tree where perhaps a leopard should actually be nestled, but isn't. Alright, while we carry on the checking around for hopefully a mating pair, Jamie's out back up and running, so we'll head across to her and I'll see you just now.
We are indeed checking for mating leopards. I just wanted to double check these tracks that I've just seen. But I've definitely been out of the bush for a bit too long because they're hyena tracks, they're not leopard tracks. Nope, hyena tracks heading up and down. Now I'm not sure, I forgot to ask actually if that hyena den on Aubrey's Road is still active. But something that I'm quite keen to go and see. I don't think it will still be, but it'll be interesting to go and check. But for now, I am on the trail of mating leopards. I'm going to go and see if I can figure out where they've gone. I'm just doing a big loop around the area. And take Zoe's Road and check that they haven't crossed back to the west. They did come from the west. Let's see if we can find any sign of them here before we go and check the deep depths of the drainage lines around this area. There's two interconnecting drainage lines, one that runs just close to Zoe's Road and one that runs along Philemon's Cut Line and Philemon's Dip. And I'll check both of those on going to be. Now I'm not sure it will be either. I know that Shadow was mating with Tingana. I don't know if it means that she's still mating.
Right, back with us. Jamie's having a little bit of trouble. Very unfair on her, especially so early in her work cycle. Still, so it goes. Such are the trials of broadcasting high definition out of the wilderness of the Greater Kruger National Park. And the reason I'm still driving around like this, of course, is because I have not found the leopards yet. But we are holding thumbs. I think Ephraim from Cheetah Plains is coming into the area to help us out. Whoops. Watch your heads, everyone. And hopefully we'll find one or two other animals as we go. We have seen some rather parched looking impala. They of course are extremely water dependent, so they will need to find water. But as we had a wonderful question yesterday morning about puddles and whether animals will drink from the puddles, and it was asked as we managed to find some buffalo drinking out of a puddle. So while it's not obvious, after the rain that we've had, there is water in the blocks here, just sitting in kind of pans or little depressions of clay that hold water. And while you and I certainly wouldn't dip our faces into such water, we'd be sick for days, the animals out here of course can handle that kind of, all the bacteria and the bits and pieces that come out in dirty water, and they will happily drink that. Maybe that's what those leopards are doing. I'm a bit in two minds as to where they've gone, but we do have all afternoon, and it's a beautiful afternoon. around here. I think that's the best idea for now. Head towards that clearing. We had a wonderful sighting of an elephant bull this morning. You guys also had a wonderful sighting with Brent of an elephant bull, or 2 elephant bulls. And maybe we'll be able to spot him again somewhere in here. So Treehouse Dam is just down to the south there. Twin Dam's off to the southeast. And so we'll stick around this area and see if they didn't perhaps come out and have a little drink in the puddle. Who knows? We had an important question asked this morning about drainage lines and what a drainage line is, and is it a dry riverbed? It is indeed a dry riverbed, and so when you hear me talk about drainage lines, I'm talking about an area like this that Liam will show you. It's an area that perhaps used to carry quite a lot of water during a time when this area was a lot wetter than it is now, and indeed this used to be a sea at one stage. Many millions of years ago, before tectonic activity basically folded it in on itself and turned it at about 90 degrees. And that would have resulted, I think, in quite a lot of river development. And many of these rivers, of course, only flow after the most extreme rains. Otherwise, they're just these really nice, especially great places to walk, and especially fertile, normally for leopards. If they happen to be walking along, they'll choose to do it in a drainage line quite often. And hear some ring-necked doves calling, further cicada noises, no leopards. Leopard orchid up here that I can see. Now, in South Africa, Halloween is not an enormous holiday, not quite like it is in the United States. Stacey, I think it's you. You're going trick-or-treating, are you? Or your daughter? I couldn't quite tell from the excitement on the radio. But you're going dressed as me, which I think is possibly the best compliment that you could ever give somebody. Also, I think it's the best costume you could ever have for Halloween. I imagine that the amount of sweeties you will be able to garner from the people of your neighborhood will have you overflowing. Excellent idea. And your dog is going as a lion. Very good. Which lion? I'd like to know which lion he's going as. I hope a large Matimba male, perhaps as a hairy belly, the Matimba male. What a brilliant idea. Thank you, Stacey. And apparently there is a photograph of this child dressed as me. Perhaps they could tweet that. No, we don't have a photo. Please send through a photograph. Hashtag Safari Live and interactive, as I say. Questions and comments, same thing. Hashtag Safari Live, but please hashtag a photograph of this child dressed as me and the dog dressed as a Matimba male lion. Yes, I think I want to see it. I certainly think that everybody else in the camp definitely wants to see it. I think I also want to see it. I think wonderful idea. It's got me totally distracted from looking at the mating leopards. Drive to the top of the crest here and then stop and have another listen. Ephraim thought they were heading towards an old hyena den. Many of you knew before I got here it had hyenas in it. We'll drive towards that. He thought maybe they were heading that direction. Perhaps they are. Perhaps they are not. There's been a tremendous flush of green from the grass since we had some rain about two days ago. And I don't know if you'll be able to notice it, but certainly I think it's pretty obvious. Huge flush of green. There's lots of water now in the top surface layer of the soil, and that of course is what the grasses need, the grass plants. And there's also a greater number of various kinds of fly that are attacking us as a result of the heat and the moisture. Lots more insects around. And this morning I was inundated by little spiderlings of ballooning, trying to find perches to build their new webs. And they're ballooning away, mostly across my face it seemed this morning. The termite mound is starting to look like a leopard. Let's often have a listen here. Now that I don't know what that is. It's not a flying termite as far as I can tell. It might actually be a flying ant. So the ants also fly. They have sort of royal casts. This one has only got seems to be missing a few legs. Oh, it's just standing up. No, it doesn't. It's not, yeah, no, it's missing a leg. It's limping a bit. Right, well, he flew into my face, poor fellow. I'm going to put him out of his misery. Well, not out of his misery. I'm just going to put him into the bush where he belongs. No, he's not missing a leg. He's got all 6 legs. I think what he's doing when he's standing up like that is having a smell, basically, looking around. Right, he's off. No leopards yet. Let's keep going. Liam, what do you think? Where are they? Liam thinks they're over there. He doesn't say where over there. Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep looking for tracks. It's a lovely, glorious afternoon. So even if we don't find them, just very nice to spend some time out here. Hardly call this work, really. Here's the road towards the hyena den. Let's go down here. Let's see if there aren't any tracks. Quietly, I'm trying to hear the leopards. Now, obviously we do a lot of looking for the bigger stuff out here, but there are very, very many hundreds of interesting little creatures like the giant land snail. And Cecilia and Maryland, you want to know if they're coming out yet. I haven't seen any. Apparently they do live quite a long time, up to 15 years in some cases. I haven't seen any, Cecilia, but I imagine that they will be around fairly soon, especially after this last rain. I think this last rain will be a bit of a trigger for all sorts of creatures. So I think the giant land snail which apparently is an edible delicacy. I have not tried. I'm unlikely to try ever in my lifetime. Apparently they are around, or they will be around very soon. Right, here we are at the old hyena den. We're going to stop again and have another listen to see if we can't hear something. The growl of meeting leopards. It would be so exciting to hear them. Alright, let's look back to Jamie for a little while. We're going to continue on the search. I think Jamie's also on the hunt. We're going to head now further back to the east. I don't think they've come into this area if we haven't heard them. She's up and running again, and I will see you on the other side of this little gully.
And you're back once again on the back of Wendy, and I think that with some seriously technological thinking from Jean-Dre, we might have fixed whatever's been happening, which is why you keep losing me every now and again, probably in mid-sentence half the time. I don't even remember what I was saying before, but we'll continue with a different topic of conversation. Jean-Dre figured out that we might have a slight heat problem happening in the back of Wendy. Sort of. I'm simplifying it a lot. He had to simplify it a lot for me as well. We know to go and check the drainage lines and all those sneaky kinds of places. It's amazing how quiet it is out here, and I think that's mostly to do with the heat, but it's also because just in the time I've been gone, with that little bit of rain that Djuma had apparently, everything is now about 3 times as thick as it, or at least it's reduced the visibility by about 3 times since I was last here. These monkey orange thickets that I have driven through many a time, trying to follow either lions or leopards, are now look completely impenetrable and completely different. Here a squirrel. Let's go back a bit. Stop for a moment. I'm sure I heard one somewhere off here. Oh, he's a bit further forward. A bit further into the block. Squirrels are tricky things to follow their alarm calls. The 2 leopards or at least 2 of the 4 leopards that we saw in Kruger the last few days, we found by following squirrel alarm calls. But that doesn't always work, because of course if you are this big out here, this big and fluffy, you're a food item for lots of different things. So there's lots of different things to shout at, including birds of prey, things like even a mongoose or a genet will set off a squirrel shouting. But let's just do a quick trip into the clearing here and see if we can pick up on it around this side. Where are you, squirrel? What are you saying? I've had to put my Game Drive channel on open for now, so every now and again you might hear the voices of the different guides coming through. Jean-Dre spotted the answer. Yeah, bird of prey. Looked like a snake eagle. It's disappearing off. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a visual of it, but it was definitely what that squirrel was shouting at. It's flying over, circling, looking for things to eat, and the squirrel would be absolutely on its menu. I want to head back towards the drainage lines now that we've clarified what that squirrel was all about. As I said, they can be shouting at basically anything and often each other, but it's still worth following up on because squirrels have probably some of the best eyes in the bush. They're the most likely to spot something that might be a threat to them. It is interesting though that they alarm call at leopards, because for the most part, leopards are not really a threat to them. Yes, a leopard of sort of Sindile's age would definitely go out and practice his hunting skills on a squirrel. For the most part, the adults will walk past them without really bothering, unless that squirrel is right on top of them. But they still let us know that there's predators around. Now, Wolfgang from Sweden is watching, and we're traveling through a really beautiful area that's full of trees, and I'm sure as you've noticed you will have seen all of the different tree species, but Wolfgang is interested in one particular one, and that is the sausage tree. And you were wondering if we have any in this area and if I could show you one today, and I would love to. Apparently there is one around Philemon's Dip. I haven't found it yet, but apparently it is there. So I'm heading in that direction. So Wolfgang, I'll keep an eye out for them. And for those of you who are new to the area or new to these game drives, a sausage tree is a type of tree that grows these incredible fruits. Caught you? I thought that was quite smooth. It's very windy this afternoon. So a sausage tree fruit can be up to this long. Incredibly sturdy looking fruits that look like the really big European sausages. And it's very important to know what they look like and to keep an eye out for them, especially if you're visitors to the Kruger. And if any of you do go and visit and you head across to something like Olifant's Camp or Letaba Camp, be careful of where you park your cars, because the sausage trees, nice, beautiful, thick, dense green vegetation, but you really, really, really don't want to have one of those fruits fall on your cars. And I'm not sure what the statistics are. I'm just wondering now whether anybody's ever been killed by a falling sausage tree, because they are heavy. And it must have happened at some point, just like people get killed by things like falling coconuts. They seem like such a good place to park off under the shade and spend some time sheltering. Something that elephants love. And interestingly, they do lose their leaves, but not seasonally in the same way that most deciduous trees lose their leaves over winter. They drop their leaves and grow their new leaves in a very, very short space of time. And by short, I mean essentially the space of a week or two. And they don't all do it at the same time. They alternate from tree to tree. So they drop their leaves at different times. And the camp that I used to work in, there were about 4 in the garden, and they would rotate. The minute one started growing its new leaves, the next one would drop them. I'm not too sure why that is, but they grow the most beautiful pale flowers, and they're flowers that the animals absolutely love and often congregate underneath. To head across in that direction. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Philemon's Dip, and we're going to listen for the sounds of the leopards. That's what I was saying. I remember now. I was going to say regular viewers will know that when leopards mate, they do so very frequently, and they're not quiet about it. There's a considerable amount of snarling that is involved, which is why if these leopards are still in the area, if they're somewhere in that drainage line, it's worth going and just parking off in the shade for a while and having a listen to see if we can hear them. It was just the dove flying away. Right, I'm going to try to put my hat back on now that it's less open. We trundle very slowly through Philemon's Dip and around to the other side. Something that you've always got to make sure you do, first of all, you travel very slowly in these kind of reserves because otherwise you're going to miss things. But you also always run the risk of running something over. Now yesterday we had quite the terrapin-filled drive. I think we stopped at 4 different individuals, possibly 5, I don't remember. And we had some really interesting discussions about the various terrapins. But Mercedes, you were wondering, we saw them in the middle of the road moving very slowly. You were wondering if they ever become roadkill. The answer is generally in areas like this, such as the Sabi Sands, it happens, but it's quite unusual. Driving through puddles and stuff like that, you've got to do slowly so that they can surf out the other side. You don't go racing through puddles. For the most part, people who work in these kind of areas are very aware. Somewhere where it does happen quite frequently, and it's actually something that we drove past when we were in Kruger, is because people who drive around in Kruger don't obey the speed limit all the time, although there's a lot of enforcement that happens in that area. They don't always obey the speed limit, and they don't necessarily always know what they're doing, especially if they're looking for with great excitement for animals. And then tortoises and terrapins do become roadkill, and it's something that needs plenty of awareness from drivers. Reached the shade of Philemon's Dip, and Jandre, if we can, let's just have a look at that the bright green tree with the leaves. the big one in the middle. Thank you. Because I have a feeling that that might be a sausage tree. Just want to double check in binoculars. Nope, I was wrong. I was mistaken. That is not a sausage tree. That is a Natal mahogany. Also a really beautiful tree, and one that gets to a really nice big size. But it doesn't look to me to be a sausage tree. It is one that falls very close. And I'm going to grab this book here and just show you a picture of what a sausage tree really looks like. Just for Wolfgang, because I don't think I can show him one on this particular drive. I will This is the sausage tree that we're looking at, or the one that I want to find. And Donna, you say that it is in Philemon's Dip, right behind the pump house on the same side of the road, which would make it that big tree that we were looking at, or one that I would think, unless it's a very tiny sausage tree. But just while I'm here, that is what the sausage tree looks like, and those are the fruits that I was talking about. And what I think I might go and do is double check that that is a Natal mahogany. Let's go see. Let's go grab a leaf sample if we can. But we have to navigate the dangers of a drainage line driving very gently with Wendy, since Wendy's just come back into action. Let's see if we can double check. I've also been listening whilst I've been talking for any sounds of mating leopards. Sometimes these Land Rovers don't like to stay in low range. They like to pop out. I might have been wrong, this might be a sausage tree, but it just doesn't look quite right. Okay, well there we go. Nope, this is the sausage tree I was looking at. It's just got a slightly different growth form to the one I was expecting. The leaves are a little bit sharper. But here's our sausage tree, minus the sausages. Now, as far as I know, this is the only one in this area. Well, I've learned something new today. I did think it was somewhere here, but I didn't realize it was this tree. I must have driven past it so many times. We'll have to keep an eye out for them. Beautiful big tree. Interestingly, the bark of this particular tree is used as a treatment for pneumonia. I'm not sure how they use it, but it's something that does come with its own painkiller as well. And those huge sausages, which I don't see any, it doesn't seem to be fruiting. Those huge sausages are used in lots of different treatments, from anything from syphilis to rheumatism and even acne. It's something that's considered very, very important medicinally. It's also loved, as I said, the animals love the flowers that pop out, and they usually flower around August, September. This one hasn't. I haven't seen this one flowering this year. Beautiful tree. Well, there we go. Wolfgang, your sausage tree. I wish I could show you one with fruits, but I definitely haven't seen one. And I think let us head back towards the edge of the drainage line and see if we can follow up on those leopards. Now that we've done a slight deviation with the sausage tree, I'm just going to try and negotiate a path out of here. This is one of the only sausage trees I've seen in this area, which is interesting. It must be that the soil is not quite, the soil and the growth conditions are not quite right for it as a tree species. Lots of other competition coming from things like bush willows, which are the dominant species around here. Now, driving away from that sausage tree, which has been an education to me as well, because I cannot believe I've driven past it every time and not fully registered exactly what it was, but Lynn, you wanted to know what the sausage fruit tastes like. And I have to be honest, I've never eaten it before. I have eaten things like baobab fruit, and baobab fruit is absolutely delicious. And I imagine it has quite a similar dry texture. Baobab fruit is almost crumbly when you get to eat it. It's not soft and fleshy like marula fruit. And somehow I imagine that is what sausage fruit is like. But I've never tasted it. It's something I've always wanted to do and never got around to. So I'll have to try it. And then I can use it to treat whatever particular ailment I have at the time. Maybe it'll help the hay fever go away as well, the springtime hay fever. Mentioned that it doesn't fruit every year in the same way apple trees do, and that is something I've experienced. And it's interesting how certain sausage trees in certain areas can time it so that the one tree, just like what I said about the leaves, but in a yearly cycle, so that the one tree has fruit one year, the one next to it has fruit the next year. It is interesting. And we're getting even more information on the subject of the medicinal uses, and it does have so many various applications. But Karen, who's watching all the way in London, apparently it's something that can be mixed with aqueous cream and used for treatment of mild skin cancers. And that is very interesting. Hello, buffalo. Something that my dad's picked up my dad's a pathologist who works in Johannesburg, and something that he's said that they're seeing more and more of is skin cancers in young people around sort of the age of 25 to 30, far more than they've ever seen in previous years. And I wonder whether that's something that might be a useful application for them. Hello, buffles. Two gentlemen buffalo just making their way away from us. Quite probably, almost definitely I would say, on their way to the Djuma waterhole to go and have a drink in the late afternoon. There you go. Bye bye, boys. Keep an eye out if you have got the Djuma Dam cam open. Have a look and see if those two buffalo go and join you, or go and join the waterhole. They're looking a little bit thin. Is your fluid head warm, Chandre? It's very, very hot, and that sometimes gives the camera a little bit of a shake every now and again. Now in the background I can also hear one of the other cuckoos who's come back. I think he's meant to be saying, "I'm so sad." I've never actually found out why it is the reason that the African black cuckoo sings that he is so sad all the time. But it's one of the calls that we've only just started hearing again. And definitely one of the nicest ones. And apparently you also agree with me that it shouldn't be saying "I'm so sad." It should be saying "I'm so glad." And I like that. I enjoy that much more than the "I'm so sad." It's interesting how so often the interpretations, the way that people remember bird songs, is to give them words. And that makes sense. It works the best in terms of remembering things. But I don't know why so many of them have to have a negative bit to them, like the "I'm so sad" cuckoo, and the, what's the other one, the emerald spotted wood dove, that's meant to be saying "I'm sad, 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 sad." Hello, buffalo. We've met up with our gentleman buffalo. Stop for a moment just so that I don't push these gentlemen too fast on their way. I don't like driving too close behind buffalo, well, behind any animal like this, just because I think they feel a little bit like I'm pushing them. There they go again, looking a little bit thin. And I think that could well be because the grass is struggling a little bit at this stage. I've seen a lot of thin looking buffalo. They're not in peak condition. Hopefully the bits of rain that we've seen continue to happen. And if they do, something that we will see that will happen soon to supplement the feeding of all of the animals will be the arrival of the various fruits of certain trees, specifically the marula fruits, which are going to happen in the next few months. But to go back to a tree that we don't really have in this area, and chat a little bit about the baobab fruit, because Regina, you want to know a little bit more about the taste of it, because apparently when Regina was in Africa, when she was here on her visit, she saw them being sold on the side of the road and didn't have a chance to taste them. It's quite a sour taste. It's very tart, if I can use that word. And what I used to love to do is very refreshing taste. It feels like a palate cleanser almost. And what I used to love to do was to stick it and you sort of suck the seeds for quite a long time. The other thing that you can do with it, which is something I never tried and I regret, because there were lots of baobab fruits in one of the areas that I used to work on, but you can actually make that into the powder and then mix it. And I can only imagine that would be incredibly refreshing. But also a fruit that's unbelievably healthy. It's so high in vitamin C. Really, really good for you. Let's go and double check down here. I haven't seen any tracks coming out of this area. That being said, Ingwe Alley is quite a tricky road to see tracks on. It's very grassy with lots of rocks and things. I really want to do is go and explore the drainage line a little bit, and whilst I do that, I think it's time to head back across to James and see what he's been up to, and we can coordinate our search efforts in our search for these felines. I will catch up with you a little bit later. See you then.
Well, we have come to the far east now. Jamie is in the area. I have driven all the roads around where those leopards were, so we're just taking a chance. We've come to the far east. I'm sure she'll stay around there, so we'll look around here and see if there isn't anything close by. We are heading towards Buffelshoek Dam. Of course, the only remaining well, there is some water at Djuma Dam, of course, in that little pan, but we're heading towards Buffelshoek Dam, which is the only kind of large body of water left on Djuma. The flies are out in great profusion, as you can see. Otherwise, we have not seen a great deal since I last saw you. We did see one buffalo bull who disappeared into the bush. We saw a small herd of impala who disappeared onto onto a little Gowrie, the property to the south of us. And yes, that's about it really since I last saw you. But I'm very pleased to see that Wendy is clearly working again. And Viam and I were just discussing some possible Halloween outfits for ourselves. We've come up with two. We may put them on by the time the drive comes to an end. So that's something perhaps to look forward to. You can see it's been an extremely hot day compared with the last 10 days actually, and I think what that's resulted in is animals basically charging for the shade as fast as they can. The edge of the heat has just come off now. In the last probably 15 minutes or so, I've just noticed a slight change in the temperature as the sun starts its way towards the western horizon, and hopefully that will result in a few of the animals coming out of the shade. Because at the moment, not much other than flies to look at. Plenty of trees, of course. Now, while we're driving along, of course, Africa is known, or South Africa specifically, is known as the cradle of humankind. And Marianne, in Arkansas, you are interested in the fact that you say life apparently started in Africa. Do we ever find fossils? Well, there are two things to that question, Marianne, which I'm going to, of course, the two mammals that I've seen so far are now running that way. Oh, quickly, let's go. Marianne, I'll get back to your question. Jamie's got an elephant. Let's go and see that.
Look what we found just around the corner. An elephant having a wonderful time in the mud. I almost wish that I could join him. It looks like so much fun. Oh, yes! Oh, is that wonderful? Are you full of the joys now, little boy? That was very sweet. I'm gonna sit here for the moment because I'm just wondering if this... I think they've found water there at the back. Oh no, here we go. She's coming. She is coming. Hello, big girl. Are you going for a swim? I think that's a very good idea. I'm just going to shift forward ever so slightly to get Chandra out of this bush. Eddies are having an amazing time. I wish I could go and join her. It's hot enough that it would be quite fun. And of course, elephants do this to cool down, spatter themselves with nice cool mud, but I also think they love doing it. I honestly think they have fun doing it. And there's quite the technique to it. It must be tricky to wrap your trunk around mud and water like that and then get it into the places you want to have it. Here comes little one to join. There's a technique to flicking your trunk just right to get the mud where you want it. Hello, baby. You coming to join in? It's going to be quiet for a moment so you can hear them. Head first into the mud. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, even got covered in mud from Mom. Well, sometimes if you can't quite master the technique of flicking your mud over with your trunk, the best solution is to then shove your head in it and then do what this little one's just done. Oh, and they're having an amazing time. Look, you can see they're enjoying it. Up we get. That side's done. Always don't know where to look. Oh, little one on the right might be bottom in the air. Sometimes it just takes that little bit of maneuvering to get all the parts covered. Absolutely sopping wet. That was very, very cute. I wonder, Chandra, I can't see from my angle. Are there no more coming this way? Or are they all at that pan at the back?
The back pan.
Okay. Oh yes, they're moving off. I'm just going to reposition quickly so we can get the herd as they move away. But that was quite the sighting. I love watching elephants play in mud. They have a wonderful time. I'm going to disappear off that way. Get around here. I think this particular pan is dry. I think they're going going to disappear off very quickly. Might be able to catch up with them in the drainage line. This is where they're disappearing off to. A family of very muddy elephants. How wonderful was that? And it reminds me of an advert that used to be around on television when I was a child for a paint company, with a couple of elephants that went and did a big mud bath in a pan just like that one, and then the sprinklers washed all of the mud off the paint. It was to advertise the resilience of the paint. And it came with a very catchy theme tune as well. Something about splish and splash and taking a bath. And a very good advert for the resilience of, I can't remember the brand, which is maybe not a good sign, but I was probably about 10 years old at the time. Let's go find these Ellies, let's catch up with them. I think they're going to go and hang out in the shade of the Milwaukee. And we're right at the junction, so we can catch up with them that side. But it's a very valuable thing that those elephants do, because when you're 4 or 5 tons worth of elephant in baking hot sun, not much surface area and a very thick skin, it's one of the best ways to cool down. Oh, there's more elephants there. There's Ellies everywhere. How wonderful. Definitely not something to complain about. Now, Patricia in San Diego, Patricia was wondering, with them using their trunks like that and scooping out the mud, do their trunks ever get obstructed in any way or blocked up in any way by mud? And the answer is no, they don't. Oh, there's a warthog going to run across the road. But he's running, he's gone. Very brief visual of a warthog, also covered in mud. Oh, but there's a baby. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny elephant baby, and I have to show you it right now because it's adorable. I really hope I can get a good view of this baby. Let's go see if we can get it. And sorry, Patricia, I'm going to get to your question in a moment because it's interesting. Oh, Baba, don't disappear. Hello, Ellies. Hello, big girls. Come in slowly. There's nothing better than an elephant on a Saturday afternoon, or any morning, or at any time. There's nothing that puts a smile on my face quite like Ellies do. I'm going to stop here. Hello, Bubby. You're not the baby I was talking about, but you are very tiny and very cute and slightly uncoordinated. Hello, girls. Oh, wait, baby's coming back out. Hello. I love them at this age. All stumbly and full of fun and playful. Running up to greet probably Auntie, but I'm not too sure. Could be Mom as well. Might have strayed a little bit further. Running back to reunite. No, I think it might be Mom, because he's sticking with her now. Reaching up with that trunk that's so important in their bonding rituals and showing mood. Look at that size difference. Oh, elephants are wonderful. Nice big herd as well. There's probably about 12 of them. About 9 of them were moving around us, and the rest of them are tucked away in some very, very thick bush. But also, I think, making their way down towards the drainage line. Might be able to catch up with them there. I'm just going to check there's nobody behind me. Nope. Let me shift forward a fraction so we can get a nice view. And then I can answer Patricia's question about blocked trunks. Here we go, back with the baby. Just wanted to concentrate on finding a nice place without upsetting the elephants at all. But as you can see, they are quite content. Now, Patricia, you were wondering about, with all that they use their trunk from, which is anything from feeding to drinking to splashing mud on themselves, do they ever get anything stuck up there? And the answer is, I guess that must happen every now and again, particularly with a thorn. Imagine if you are wrapping your trunk around and it pierces the inside of that sensitive skin. But even then, with the mud that they were flicking up, they're not going to suck it far up into their trunks. They will with water, but they won't do it with mud. They'll be far less likely to get it obstructed in that way. All they'll do is suck a tiny little bit up, and then most of it is done by a flick of the end of the trunk. But it must happen every now and again. I've never seen an elephant that seems to be struggling with its trunk, except in cases where it's been snared. Oh, little baby. You are so tiny and so shy. Please come out and say hello. Just that tiny little tail wagging. The best way to read an elephant's mood: the tail and the ears. And we saw those Ellies flicking up all of that mud onto their ears, and there in Canada you wanted to know if that doesn't affect the thermal regulation system that they have going with their ears. So for those of you who don't know, those giant ears essentially almost work like fans, although that's an oversimplified way of putting it. There's a lot of capillaries right close to the blood surface. Oh, we've got some more eddies coming through. I think this might be our previous lot. Let me just turn around so we can see them. I'm just going to reposition myself. As I was saying about those ears, they're filled with a network of capillary vessels. So it's a great way to cool the elephant down because they flap them and the blood is so close to the surface there. Hello, boy. She's eating on the run. Hello, gorgeous girl. And there you can see her ears. You can see in the wrinkles on her ears, you can see all the patterns of veins as she goes past. It's a great cooling mechanism, but no, the mud won't affect them in any way because the mud is so wet. And if it does start to crust and get too thick, then all they need to do is rub it on the side of the tree. But for the most part, the evaporation that happens close to those capillaries is something that just adds to the cooling power of the mud. And then with the flapping and the rubbing, it then falls off. These ellies have decided that the coolest place to be, apart from all of the mud wallowing that they've done, is to tuck themselves in an incredibly thick area. Now I'm going to try and reposition so we can get a last glimpse of them, but I definitely won't be able to follow them. And whilst I reposition to try and see where these ellies are going to go and if they're going to come to the drainage line, let's head across to James, who has some hippos close to Buffelshoek, Hook, and I'll be back with you a little bit later.
So some hippopotamus languishing in what remains of Buffelshoek Dam. And Buffelshoek Dam, if you look as Wiem zooms out, is drying up fast. That is the bottom of it there that you can see. They're on the deepest section, these hippos, and they're making use of what is a vast diminishing body of water. I thought at one stage it would see us through, but unless we get some very major rain very soon, this dam is going to go the way of Djuma Dam, Treehouse and Twin Dams and be totally and utterly dry fairly soon. It will become a mud wallow. And just up in the tree, you might be able to hear you can hear the call of a virtual starling, but there are also a whole lot of red-billed buffalo weavers which now have inconveniently moved behind their nest. They're all building now quite furiously as the summer progresses, and they're exhibiting, I wish I could actually show this to you, they were doing it so nicely, this thing called gular flutter, when they open their beaks and flutter the gular flap, which is in the throat, in an effort to try and cool down. And it's very important on a hot day like this that they do that. Anyway, they have, as with most other things around here, disappeared. While Jamie is repositioning to show you the elephants again, I think that's what she's going to do, just to keep you posted, the other night have seen something very interesting. Two duiker, at least 3 pairs of duiker we've seen today and yesterday together. Now that's unusual. Male and female duiker are normally not together. They normally keep separate territories. They're only together if they're mating, and it's interesting. It must be the mating season now. They're not particularly well studied duiker. I think they've got about a 4-month gestation period, so you'll probably find that they give birth out of that peak kind of birthing season, which would be at the end of November. They'll give birth probably beginning of March, which is an interesting kind of hear the water thickneys calling there. So it's quite an interesting strategy that they should give birth beginning of March, and I think you'll find that the reason for that is that they're concentrate feeders. They eat a lot of seed pods and possibly the odd fruit, and their food resource is probably highest at that time of the year. So quite interesting. I did see a water thickney and it's now flown away. Anyway, let's go back to the hippo here. Quite interesting little story. We've been discussing whether hippos are, or elephants, and it was precipitated by a question about whether elephants are related to whales or not. Now I didn't think it was. They were. So I went and did a bit of research today. And hippopotamus are the most close relations of the whales. Now how it worked was 55 million years ago they had a common ancestor. Now what that means is the animal that eventually evolved into hippopotamus and into the whales and dolphins, was sort of split into 2 species 55 million years ago. Now that doesn't mean that hippos are 55 million years old and so are whales. It means that was the last time they had a common ancestor. Now what that also means is that they are very distantly related. They're not closely related at all. And that animal that split into eventually what was to become the hippo and what was to become the whales was a land-based mammal. And so, look, I'm sorry, can you just get up into the nest there? You can see the red-billed buffalo weaver is adding sticks to his nest. So what is interesting is that when the reptiles came many hundreds of millions of years ago, when the reptiles came out of the water and eventually turned into the dinosaurs, a few of the dinosaurs evolved into modern mammals, Most of them then evolved into our current mammals that we have around here. Some of them then, this common ancestor of the hippo and the whale, went back into the water. So hippos and whales evolved from mammals that were originally completely terrestrial outside of the water, and they're now obviously not. I don't know if you saw that lovely red-billed buffalo weaver building his nest. Yeah, you can hear them going tick 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 tick. That is the red-billed buffalo weaver. Okay, I think Buffelshoek Dam has provided us with all the entertainment that it's going to for now. Let us press on. We're going to go north onto the Buffelshoek cut line and head west again, possibly go and see what's on Arathusa. We'll see by the time we get there. We had some reports of elephants, reports of the old leopard track as well around that area. So let's go and see what we can find there. Now, before Jamie found that what sounds like wonderful elephant herd, Marianne in Arkansas, you were asking various things about the origins of life, and you thought that life had begun perhaps in Africa, and were there any fossils here? Marianne, there are lots of fossils around, well, small ones, not in this particular area. You can find the odd fossil, but not a great number, but there are around here. The big thing is that life didn't evolve necessarily in Africa. When life evolved, of course it was at a time when tectonic plate activity and continental drift was such that the world looked nothing like it does now. Most of the continents were joined to each other, and because of that you couldn't really say whether life evolved in Africa or not. But you can say that human life, certainly anatomically modern human beings, which were about 150,000 years old, evolved here, and many of the hominid and hominin species that were eventually to become human beings evolved in Africa. And there are fossils around the place, not that many in this area, but certainly lots of, the human remains and hominid remains are huge numbers of them off near Johannesburg in the cave system called the Sterkfontein Caves, just north of Johannesburg. So we're going to head north towards the Buffelshoek cut line, see what we can find there. Jamie will continue to look at the leopards, possibly those elephants. Oh, goodness. Gerald Jigger is feeling very bumpy since she returned from hospital. So turn the radio up. It does appear to be a leopard on Buffelshoek. Fortunately, we can't go there, but there must eventually be a leopard on Djuma, surely. Oh, you beastly little bird. You get him there, Vian. That is a Cape glossy starling, and they will be sitting on many of these dead knobthorn trees, mainly because there are holes in them, and those starlings are hole nesting birds. And I think Steph, 2 days ago or so, found you an African harrier hawk or gymnogene that was trying to rob the nest of its little chicks. And often, I think that starling may well have a nest in the tree that we originally found it in, but it's flown off to try and sort of pull us away, if you like. Birds will often do that to predators. They will try and draw them away from the nest. Right, much better now. We still have found not a great deal. Jamie's back on the elephants. Let's go and see her. Hopefully we'll see you next time with something exciting.
Alright, big girl. Hi. And as you can see, we have relocated our wonderful elephant family. They've crossed just close to the other junction of the road. I can't go any closer at the moment. That female was giving me a little bit of a head shake, just to let me know. Just gonna wait for them to cross before repositioning. But such a beautiful sighting of this elephant herd in the sunset. We had to wait a while for them to come through the block. It's very, very thick up there. But they've come out pretty much exactly where I expected them to, which is good news. It gets nice and open up there if I am where I think I am. Hi guys. Where are you on a mission to? They're on a mission to somewhere. Definitely on the move. Let's try get around onto the road. We'll catch up with them there. Alrighty, so caught up with these eddies. I do think they're going to be out of our sight fairly soon. But at least we've got to spend some time with them. Now, as you can imagine, even a little guy like this, little boy, has quite a big impact on what he eats. And one adult elephant bull, can eat around 300 kilograms, about 650 pounds of food in one day. A female, probably just under that, but either way, there's a huge impact on the environment that they're in. David, who is watching all the way from Oregon, David wanted to know whether or not they devastate the area that they're in, or whether they practice safe conservation practices, so they conserve the food. And David, that's really interesting, and it's a question that has occupied the attention of many a conservationist and an ecologist. In an area like this, naturally, or in a completely open system, where they're free to move as they will, yes, for the most part they will, and they're actually quite a vital part of the ecosystem. They help to keep the woody layer, so all the trees, from becoming too thick and therefore destroying the grass layer beneath them. It's a really important factor. But if you're in an area where elephants can't move around and can't actually balance the way that they feed, then they can have a very negative impact on the environment that they're in. And you see it with certain closed systems, so not where we are now, not when they've got 3 million hectares of space, but in closed systems their numbers do have to be controlled very carefully, or they will change the habitat from woodland to grassland in the space of maybe 15 years or so. And in doing so, they seriously disadvantage the other species that might favor woodland habitats. So anything from black rhino to kudu and inyala might be disadvantaged. So it is such a delicate balancing act. And it's something that nature has got right, but unfortunately man has come along and put fences in, which has meant that certain levels of the elephant population need to be controlled. I'm going to try and reposition one last time so that we can get a view of these eddies. I think they're going to stay moving along the drainage line though, so we might be able to catch up with them further down. On the move somewhere. other impact that elephants have on the habitat, although it's not a majorly negative one, but something that they do is dig holes in drainage lines like the one that we've just come through. And Barbara, you were wondering whether the water table is a little bit low for them to be doing it at the moment, because you haven't seen them do it in a while, and it's something that you used to watch on these live safaris. And the answer to that is probably yes. It has been 2 years now of very dry weather, and it could be that it's got to the point where it is just that little bit too low. It would take a lot of effort for them. Hello, little one. It's my favorite elephant look, the down the nose stare. Yes, okay, off you go to mom. Now we've just seen that little baby wandering around, and Marilyn, who's in California, you wanted to know if babies' trunks are proportionally shorter when they're born, and then it grows longer as they develop and they grow, and whether or not it stops them tripping over it when they are little like this. And I think that's definitely a factor. We'll try and get us a better view quickly as I answer Marilyn's question, maybe of the baby's trunk. Have to wait for baby to come out a little bit. Marilyn, I would say yes, they're proportionally shorter. I would definitely say they're proportionally thinner than the adult's trunks, and that's because they're not used nearly as much, they're not as relied upon. That baby that we're looking at now is going to suckle right up until 2 years old, and possibly even older. Whereas mom needs to use her trunk for things like this current activity, where she's basically just shoved a tree out of the way, and that requires a little bit more strength and practice. Baby's on his way to see what mom's doing, sniffing with that little trunk. I'm not sure that it has anything to do with them tripping over it, but it could be because they have to struggle to keep up, and baby elephants are uncoordinated as it is. So maybe that's a thought. It's not something I've thought about, but definitely interesting. Little Baba. Just hiding out there in the thick bush, trying to investigate what mom is doing. I'm looking for a nice way in, but I don't really see one that isn't going to upset them and just cause them to move away and further into the bush. We'll leave them be as they are. And baby's also, I think she's going for the roots of that guarri tree. And baby's got something in its trunk. I'm not sure what that was. I'm not sure if she managed to get it. It is a little female calf. Elephants are probably one of my favorite. They're definitely one of my favorites out here. And I think if I really had to choose, I would probably say they are my favorite animal, right at the top of the list. And Trisha, who's watching from Toronto, you wanted to know whether or not I think that they have individual personalities and whether they respond differently to me as to other guides. And the answer is Okay, well, James is with Interesting Elephants, so let's head across to James. I'll be with you a little bit later.
Sorry to drag you away from Jamie, everybody. Just an amazing thing that's just occurred here. You can see the adult and the little baby in the middle. That youngster on the left-hand side of your picture, youngish cow, as we pulled in here, she did a typical kind of shake of the head at us, and then she backed in towards a young bull. Actually, he backed in towards that cow and her youngster and blocked us from viewing the little one, and then started making that low rumbling call as if to say, don't come near us. And then as the adult moved out with the baby, that bull shielded us and made sure that he was between us and the baby as they moved out. It was just fascinating to watch. So sometimes, you know, we drive into the sightings and we see the young bull shake his head and we think he's just having a bit of a play with us. That was definitely purposeful. And they're still rumbling at each other. You won't be able to pick it up on your microphone or on your speakers, but they're still going. So perhaps a younger sibling. No, he's a bit big. Maybe an uncle of that little one, but very protective. Checking all the time with his trunk. Amazing. Now VM's going to pop across over the top of my head and show you an even smaller one. There's a really big herd of elephants. There are a whole lot of them up behind us. So what I'm going to do is I'll just do a quick turn here. There's a tiny little one in there, and clearly the protective bull is not nearly as worried about this little one as he is about the others. Oh, there we go. As we started the engine, he ran out. I'm just going to get into a position where you can see him. Tiny little elephant. They're very small, well under a year old, just a few months maybe. There we go, looking at us. Tiny little thing. And you can see it's very young because it can't fit, it can still fit under its mum's belly quite easily. The mother is totally unconcerned by us. It's amazing. So completely different reaction. Those other three that we saw were standing with this lot, and they reacted totally differently. There's so much communication going on between elephants that we have absolutely no idea about, I think. Right, now quickly, before they disappear, the whole herd is going across the boundary into Devil's Hook. Huge herd. We'll just drive up here behind them. Just looking at a tiny little baby elephant, two tiny babies, and Laura in Happy Valley in Oregon. Oh, sounds like a wonderful place to live. You want to know if elephants ever give birth prematurely? I'm sure they do sometimes. I'm pretty sure also, though, that would probably result in the death of the calf. I'm sure within a few months, or maybe it will be okay. But remember, that calf's got to be in pretty top-notch condition when it's born, because it's not easy out here to survive. And if the calf can't stand up and move with the herd almost immediately, then it's not going to survive. The little one. Oh, missing a tusk. I think they're all moving off to try and find some water inside Buffalo's Hook. We're on the boundary now.